Hi everyone, this is Selena Kraus and welcome to another card video. In this video I'm featuring the Hero Arts February monthly hero kit, and today is the release day. So let's get a closer look. Here a quick peek of the cards that we'll be making today. And this month's kit and this month's release, it's all about birthdays. So here's the kit. It's 6x8 stamp set. It has two kind of frame dies. One fits A2 card front, and the other one is a little bit smaller, and also coordinates pretty well with the round rectangle infinity dies. So I'll show you towards the end of the video a sample that I created using the smaller image, and here we have the coordinating dies. They're like little images that you can cut out from those frames, and as well there are some of the standalone. There's a cake and there is a present. So, and as well there is a cake that's paper layering die standalone, and we have the lacquer pen. It comes in 3 colors. You can add it on the icing of the cake. It's yellow, pink, and blue, as well a bunch of fun sequins. So let's get started. I'm using the larger frame, and since I'm stamping on A2 piece of cardstock, while we're starting with Vellum, I'm using the MISTI creative corners to make sure that I offset that one so we have nice coverage when we stamp. So I'm using embossing, like anti-static embossing powder, to make sure that when I apply the embossing powder, it won't stick where I don't want to, where we don't have stamped. And I'm using the embossing and watermarking, so making sure that I have nice coverage, because it's again larger stamp, and on the Vellum it's pretty easy to see where we have stamped, where not. So I think that's pretty good. And next what I'll do is apply white embossing powder. So I'm just holding the piece of Vellum by the edge where I don't have a stamped image. And this is as well very good stamp for coloring, but I wanted to make more quick cards, so I decided to just go with embossing and no coloring. You can emboss in color, you can emboss on white paper, and white cardstock can color all the images. You can emboss with black, not with white on white cardstock. That will kind of look washed off maybe. I haven't tried, but actually I've applied color around the images as well, and inside the images that will look pretty good. So next I'm stamping a Nautical cardstock, just kind of dark navy. It's one of my favorite colors from the Hero Arts collection. Again, I'm stamping a couple times to make sure that I have nice coverage. And again, I'm using the white embossing powder to emboss on this piece as well. So I'm shaking off the excess, applying some more, and then I will heat set it. So I think that's pretty good. So we have the Vellum and the blue. Next I'll stamp on Azalea. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. Again, I'm using the anti-static powder tool to condition the cardstock before I stamp. Again, I'm covering my stamp using that Watermark and embossing ink. Again, I'm stamping a couple times to make sure that I have nice coverage, so when we emboss it in white, it's nice and crisp white and very detailed. So I'm applying that. I'm just removing the excess with a paintbrush, or you can just shake it off. And then I will heat set this one as well. And then next two, we're gonna do the plum pudding and mist cardstock, but we'll go a little bit off the white. We're not gonna emboss with white. For the plum pudding, we'll emboss with the ultrafine clear embossing powder, and that's I'm stamping it now. And then when we do the mist, we'll emboss with white satin embossing powder, and you have that like kind of clear but little pearlescent look, and it looks very nice, kind of more elegant when you emboss with that white satin embossing powder. So here I have the clear embossing powder. I'm heat setting it to melt the powder. So that's done. And then we have those 4, and we're gonna go with one more. That's the Miss Cardstock. Again, it's one of my favorite colors from Hero Arts. And again, I'm making sure that I press nicely and not firmly, but evenly on all sides, so we have nice impression. So I'm just covering different areas that didn't stamp well the first time. Next, I'm covering it with that white satin embossing powder. So I think that's good. I'm returning the embossing powder back in the jar and heat setting that piece. So you can see as it melts, you can see more the stamped image. So here's a little closer look. So we have all panels done now. And next, off the camera, I die cut all the paper layering cakes, 5 of them. And I'm using a box to, and I'll add a little bit shimmer. So I'm spraying them with white shimmer spray, white iridescent shimmer spray. While they're drying, I'm trimming all the panels down to 4 by 5 1/4 because we're gonna add them to the top folding note cards. So for the white one, I'm adding it to a white A2 size of cardstock before adding it to the note card. And I'm adhering that cake using dimensionals like foam squares. So I'll repeat the same process. Here on the vellum, I'm using vellum adhesive to adhere it to the layer, but for the other ones, I'll be using the Hero Arts Precision Liquid Glue. So next I'm repeating the same process for all of the panels. I'm adding the cakes using dimensional squares. So we're doing the last one. So we have all 5 of them. And all what we're missing now is a sentiment. So I'm trying to see which sentiment would work. I was wondering whether I should put it on top of the cake or above the cake. So I decided to go with Celebrate. So I'm using the same colors of cardstock I used for the panels. And I'll stamp the Celebrate using embossing and Watermark ink. And I'll emboss in white even on the vellum. So moving those aside. And then we're going on the vellum. And then I'll just apply the white embossing powder and then heat set them. So I sped up here and I skip so you don't watch me stamp all of them and emboss all of them. The next step is to trim down those sentiments to size, to little rectangles. So I'm using my paper trimmer. I know I have a lot of wasted cardstock here to make sure that it's nice rectangle. So I'm trying to figure out where I want it to go. So I decided to put it above the candles on top of the panel. And once I have all of those Celebrate sentiment cuts, I'll use the foam adhesive, except for the vellum. I'm going to use the vellum adhesive to adhere those sentiments above the cakes. So I'm adding those right above the cakes, making sure the edge is parallel with the edge of the layer. And they're nicely centered. And next for the vellum, I'm adding it again above, but I'm using the vellum adhesive. Next I'm adding some enamel dots. Or you can use, definitely you can use the lacquer pens that come in the kit. I had yellow and I didn't feel like yellow was matching with with the colors I chose, so I decided to go with enamel dots. But in your kit you're going to receive 3 of those lacquer pens, so you can use any color of those. So I'm using here blue and pink and a little bit like lavender color. So they're all done, and we're left with to do the last step. So I'm using fun foam to adhere the panels onto top folding Dove white note cards. So I'm at the third one. I'm using the Nautical now. Next we'll do the Azalea. And then we're going to do the Vellum. For the Vellum panel, since I have already adhered to A2 size Dove white panel, I'm just adhering it directly onto my note card. So let's take a closer look to all 5 cards we made. So those are the 5 cards, and here's another sample. I shared this one on the Hero Arts blog on Friday. So for the background, I used the Happy Birthday sentiment and I stamped it in Watermark ink. And then I used a smaller background to cut it with the square, the rounded rectangle infinity dies, and I used the dies to die cut the elements so I get more dimension onto my card. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching and see you soon in another video. Bye!